She had it all, a thriving fitness empire, hundreds of thousands of followers, and a life that looked perfect online. But behind the camera, Leigh was hiding a secret, one that would cost her everything. Hours after her final post, urging her fans to take care of their mental health, she was gone. And the person closest to her? He had played a role in the pressures that led her to that tragic moment. What really happened to Leigh? Stay with us, because this story isn't what it seems. Leigh had everything the world tells you matters: a thriving fitness empire, thousands of adoring followers, a life full of promise and love, or at least, what everyone assumed was love. On Instagram, she was untouchable. Every post radiated confidence, discipline, and joy. Every video, a masterclass in self-care, strength, and empowerment. Over 215,000 people watched her every move, took her advice, followed her routines, and found in her the motivation to transform themselves. Was a beacon, a rising star, a woman who had seemingly cracked the code of happiness. But behind the filtered images and perfect angles, was fighting battles no one could see. She had built a world where control, consistency, and positivity reigned supreme. Her every word, every smile, carefully curated. But the reality of her life was far from what her followers witnessed. She was a woman under immense pressure, not just from the expectations of her fans, but from the life she had painstakingly constructed. And sometimes, the brightest lights burn the fastest. In early 2023, Nova's posts followed the usual pattern: early morning workouts, motivational reels, snippets of her personal journey. She preached mental health, self-love, and the importance of discipline. She encouraged her followers to embrace struggle as a path to growth. But the brilliance of her smile hid the fragility beneath. Hours after posting her final video, a quiet, unassuming message urging her followers to prioritize their mental well-being, Nova was gone. Her apartment in Dallas, Texas, was eerily silent. The woman who had reminded the world to stay strong no matter what, had vanished. Her boyfriend, known to the online world as rapper Cairo Blaze, was devastated. Publicly, he shared cryptic messages, grief-stricken posts, and remnants of their final conversations. But what the world didn't know, and what the investigation would later reveal, was that his constant pressure, emotional unpredictability, and controlling tendencies had pushed Nova closer to the edge. Cairo didn't pull the trigger. He didn't physically force her hand. But in subtle ways, in endless arguments, in emotional manipulation, he became a shadow over her life. He was indirectly responsible, the unseen weight on her shoulders, the storm behind her fading light. Nova's last post was understated, almost casual. A short video of her sitting in her bright, airy living room, reflecting on self-care, saying, "Take care of yourself, even when the world doesn't make it easy." Her eyes were tired, just slightly hollow at the edges, but her smile was as bright as ever. She wanted her followers to see hope, even if she struggled to feel it herself. Hours later, the Dallas skyline reflected nothing but emptiness, as Nova's life quietly ended behind closed doors. Friends and family were in shock. How could someone who seemed so strong, so vibrant, disappear so suddenly? Her business partners scrambled, trying to maintain the outward image of the GoFit empire, the fitness brand Nova had spent years building. Social media erupted with messages of disbelief, mourning, and guilt. People who had looked up to her for motivation couldn't reconcile the person they adored online with the person they now realized had been quietly suffering. Cairo Blaze's role was murky at first. To outsiders, he was a grieving partner, posting heartfelt captions about loss and love. But those close to Nova began to notice a pattern: her phone records, the messages they uncovered, the emotional pressure she had endured. She had pleaded for space, begged for understanding, and tried to maintain autonomy over her life. Yet Cairo's jealousy, his constant questioning, and the subtle criticisms of her work and followers weighed her down. It was never overtly violent, never legally prosecutable in the traditional sense. But the emotional consequences were undeniable. He had become an anchor around her neck, dragging her deeper into despair. In the final weeks before her death, Nova's content began to shift subtly. Captions that were once purely motivational began to hint at exhaustion and isolation. A video of her post-workout stretching ended with her staring silently at the camera, her usual sparkle dimmed. A photo captioned, "Keep pushing," suddenly felt hollow. Friends would later remark that she had been responding more slowly to messages, her laughter occasionally forced, her energy uneven. But the world only saw her light. On the day of her death, she sent a series of text messages to Cairo. They were calm, almost resigned. "I feel like I can't hold this anymore," she typed. "I can't feel the things I used to. I'm so tired of fighting." Cairo replied with messages of love, concern, and promises to support her. But his responses, filtered through his own pride and need for control, failed to reach her. He wanted to save her, but his methods, his presence, his constant emotional weight had been part of the problem all along. By the time his words of comfort reached her, it was too late. The investigation revealed that Nova had left no signs of forced entry, no struggle. There was no evidence that anyone had coerced her in the traditional sense. It was the emotional manipulation, the relentless pressure, the unrelenting public scrutiny, and Cairo's indirect but pervasive control that had driven her to the breaking point. She had been a star, admired by thousands, yet profoundly isolated in the most intimate of spaces. Her passing sparked conversations across the fitness community and beyond. Followers revisited her posts, suddenly reading them with a different lens. That motivational quote about pushing through pain. Now it felt like a desperate plea. The seemingly light-hearted gym reels. Now they carried the weight of someone fighting to survive. The curated images of success and empowerment were reinterpreted as silent cries for help. Nova's story became a cautionary tale. It illustrated the devastating intersection of social media pressure, emotional manipulation, and the unrealistic expectations placed upon influencers. She had been expected to be perfect, unendingly motivated, eternally optimistic, visibly happy. But perfection is a mask, and behind that mask, Nova's reality was unraveling. The grief spread far beyond her immediate circle. Mental health advocates seized the moment to push for awareness, emphasizing that depression and anxiety don't always manifest in ways the world can see. Public discussions emerged about emotional abuse in relationships, particularly the subtle, pervasive forms that leave no visible scars but can be just as deadly. Therapists and advocates urged followers to recognize the warning signs, to listen carefully, and to intervene when necessary. Her family, though devastated, became her strongest voice after her death. They spoke openly about the pressures Nova endured, her battles with mental health, and the invisible weight she carried daily. They urged people to check in on loved ones, not just when things seem wrong, but even when everything looks fine. Nova's death, they said, was preventable, not through heroics or confrontation, but through consistent empathy, presence, and attention. In the weeks that followed, Cairo Blaze faced scrutiny from the public and media. Some condemned him for his indirect role, others defended him as a grieving partner who hadn't fully understood the depth of Nova's pain. The truth was complex. He had loved her, in his own way, but love alone could not undo months, or years, of emotional strain. His presence, however well-intentioned at times, had amplified the isolation she felt. And in the silence of her apartment, that combination of public expectation and private pressure ended in tragedy. Nova's death forced a reckoning for the social media fitness community. Influencers began examining the toll of their online presence. Conversations about mental health, burnout, and the dangers of perfectionism moved from private therapy sessions into the public square. Some influencers shared unfiltered glimpses of their struggles for the first time, breaking the illusion that the life of an influencer was glamorous and effortless. The ripple effect was real. Thousands of people sought help, sought understanding, and began conversations they had been afraid to start. Her Instagram account, now inactive, became a memorial. Posts that once inspired fitness routines now inspired deeper reflection. Fans left messages, some confessing their own struggles, some sharing stories of loss, and many expressing guilt for not seeing the signs sooner. "I needed her voice to get through my darkest days," one follower wrote. "I wish I had known she was struggling." Another typed, "She taught me strength, but I wish she had let someone teach her too." Nova's story revealed the dangerous duality of social media. It could be both a lifeline and a trap. Her followers had loved her, but they had loved the persona she presented, not necessarily the woman behind it. The world had applauded her resilience, but in private, the relentless expectation had left her isolated and vulnerable. It was a wake-up call about the human cost of curated perfection. For Cairo, the aftermath was a painful, public reckoning. He tried to reconcile his love for Nova with the reality of his indirect responsibility. Interviews, social media commentary, and private reflections all painted a picture of a man confronting uncomfortable truths. He hadn't physically caused her death, but the pressures he imposed, sometimes subtle, sometimes overt, had contributed to her breaking point. And coming to terms with that reality became his lifelong burden. Mental health organizations reported spikes in calls and engagement following her death. Hotlines urged the public to listen actively, to pay attention to subtle signs of distress, and to take them seriously. People began sharing unfiltered stories online, encouraging each other to seek help without shame. Nova's passing became more than a tragic news story. It became a catalyst for change, a grim reminder of what can happen when the brightest smiles hide the deepest pain. The story of Nova Leigh is a cautionary tale with lessons for everyone, about relationships, about public life, about the hidden cost of perfection, and about the urgency of mental health awareness. It's a reminder that even those who appear strong, confident, and untouchable can be silently struggling. It's a call to pay attention, to intervene, to reach out before silence becomes irreversible. Nova's legacy is more than a series of Instagram posts or fitness routines. It's a message, urgent and haunting: the brightest lights often need support the most. Love alone is not enough. Presence, understanding, and compassion are critical. And the world must learn to listen before tragedy strikes. If you or someone you know is struggling, don't wait. Reach out. Check in on those who always seem fine. Listen to their words, watch for subtle signs, and take action before it's too late. Mental health is as critical as physical health, and ignoring the signs can have irreversible consequences. You don't need to have the perfect words, just show up, be present, and care. Nova Leigh's life ended too soon, but her story lives on as a warning and a call to action. Look beyond the surface. Ask twice. Listen with your full attention. And never assume that someone is truly okay just because they appear strong. Because sometimes, the one who seems unbreakable is silently carrying the heaviest weight. If you or someone you love is struggling, call your local mental health hotline, reach out to friends or family, and speak up. Your attention, your presence, and your care can save a life. Don't let silence be the end.